What's going on, ladies and gents in Cyberland? Coming back to you with another film review. Atlantis, The Lost Empire. So, when the film came out back in 2001, I was always intrigued by Atlantis. I always found Atlantis, stories about Atlantis fascinating, you know. And for Disney to make an animated film, I really was interested in seeing. But that didn't happen. For whatever reason, I just never got around to watching this film. I just didn't. I would see clips. I would see artwork from time to time. I would see the making of the film. But I just never got around to watching the actual movie. And it wasn't until, probably about a year ago, because now I'm doing the review, but when I actually did watch the film, it was last year. I finally watched it. And film stars Michael J. Fox. Yes, the Michael J. Fox. And he plays a character named Milo, whose grandfather said Atlantis existed, and archaeologists and scientists thought he was crazy, really kind of lambasted him, and then kind of treated Milo kind of very similar. And Milo gets a proposition from his grandfather's pretty much, I'd say, good friend or best friend. And they go find Atlantis, and there's a crew and everything at the same time. However, as they find Atlantis, they also deal with the fact that somebody in their crew is not there just to see Atlantis. They're there for a nefarious agenda. And that's when shit goes haywire. As far as the characters, they were quirky. They kind of had their own little... I just like the fact that they were not your typical characters. They all kind of had a very interesting aura about them. Milo was really kind of the... I would say he was kind of the one that kept them mesh well with each other, because I think if Milo wasn't there, I wouldn't be surprised if these guys... I think if Milo wasn't with them, not just because of his knowledge, just how he kind of interacted with them, I think they probably would have got killed in Atlantis, to be honest with you. However, nonetheless, they did not. And at the same time, I like the animation. The animation reminded me of the 70s and 80s. Like when they did this film, it's like they went back to that old, more grainy, more rigid type of drawings and stuff. And you could say, well, why would they do that? Because, unfortunately, I always get... I've always heard people say the 70s and 80s weren't the greatest when it came to a lot of the animations. They really weren't making a lot of money at the time. But I don't care. I like that artwork of that time. Maybe not the films were all too great, especially the Black Cauldron. That film was trash. But you had Milo and company. You had Oliver and company. You had the Great Mouse Detective. You had the Rescuers. You had those films that were great. You had the Aristocats, which I've never seen, but you had that film. So it was kind of like, Little Mermaid was the 80s too, even though I'm not a real big fan of that film, but it was still good nonetheless. So it was cool to see that artwork throughout the movie, even though there was a couple scenes that looked like more digitalized, but kind of mixed in with the typical animation work. As far as the characters, I didn't dislike any. Oh well, the villain was pretty conniving, and you really didn't know he was a villain until almost towards the end of the film. And he was pretty. It's kind of like he smiled at you a lot, but at the same time, he'd be sticking you with a knife while he's smiling. He was that kind of villain to me. He's not memorable per se, but he was enough to he was enough to keep my attention while watching the film. My rating for the film is an 8 out of 10. I think I would have given it a higher rating, maybe if I don't know. I just felt like maybe there just wasn't enough action, and can Disney animation have a lot of action? I don't know. It just felt like for the type of film that they were for the type of movie they were trying to do, and the information they were utilizing, it would have been cool to me to have a little bit more action, and not so much just towards the end of the film. So but nonetheless, it's a good film to watch as a family, or if you're into it is more so leans more on the science fiction of animation for Disney. So if you're more into sci-fi, I would say you check this out. There are no songs. I don't recall one song in this movie, which was a nice thing to see. And I think that's everything. I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to spoil the whole thing. I would just say it's entertaining, it's fun, and that's the best way I could put it. It's just one of those things where if you just see for yourself. You can take what I'm saying and be like, yeah, you don't know what he's talking about, or you could be like, no, I can see what he's talking about in certain aspects. It's just, it's not. I don't know if it made a lot of money. I know there's a sequel to it. I don't know if it made a lot of money in the theater, but I do know that Michael J. Fox. I was like, how could you go wrong, kind of thing. Watching the film. Excuse me. So, with that, I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.